Every fantasy relevant tight end for week 12 ranked in tiers starting at the top. And we have a solo S tier, Trey McBride. Tom, does this say more about how good Trey McBride has been this year? Or does this say more about the second tier being that notch below and perhaps not producing the heights that we would expect?
Let's call it a bit of both, because he's doing everything he can. You look back over the last 5 games and he's only had single-digit targets in 2 of his last 7 games. Like, his yards per reception has been at 11 or above in 5 games this year. The one chink in his armor before now was that he didn't score touchdowns. And now over the last 4 games, he's got 5 touchdowns. His 6 touchdowns this year is pretty much the same amount as he had in the NFL over the last 3 seasons combined. Everything Trey McBride is doing is fantastic. It doesn't matter the matchup right now. He is just absolutely cooking. So, yeah, going up against the Jags, who've allowed the second most fantasy points to the tight end position, it just feels like a nuclear week is every week at the minute for McBride, and I'll absolutely be playing him everywhere I can.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's incredible. What he's been doing is incredible. I mean, you can go back to 2015 and the player has only averaged 18.5 points per game at the tight end position, which is what Trey McBride is doing 3 times. Travis Kelce in 2022, 2020, and 2017. No other tight end has ever averaged and scored this many fantasy points. He is an absolute cheat code. He is going to win people leagues. And he's a significant tier above all other tight ends at the moment because he's finally got that touchdown equity that he has been lacking over the past few years. In our A tier, we do have George Kittle, Travis Kelce, Brock Bowers, and Tyler Warren. I talked about George Kittle as a potential sell in our Dynasty Buys and Sells video this week. I'm nervous that as we start to see Ricky Pearsall get healthy, potentially Brandon Ayuk on the horizon, I'm nervous about what that can mean for George Kittle's target share. Are you with me, or are you still confident, wheels up, that he is a locked, loaded superstar at the position?
I think this is just the reality of George Kittle at the minute. There's going to be weeks where he's elite and there'll be weeks where he's not. He's still boasting 2.81 yards per route run against man coverage. So how many teams want to try and deal with George Kittle in man coverage is an interesting idea. The Panthers are not a man coverage team whatsoever. They play the 4th lowest rate. So maybe it's a tricky matchup for him on that outcome. But we know at the tight end position, all it takes is touchdowns. And I still think with Brock Purdy back that they're going to consistently look to him in the red zone.
And someone else who's been balling out recently, Travis Kelce. He is the tight end 3 overall on the season. He scored over 20 points 2 of the last 3 weeks. It's not bad considering the guy can't play when Rashee Rice is also on the field. Do you think that he can keep this continued, or are we expecting a slight regression back to what he was doing to start the season?
Yeah, to your point and to that trope, in the 4 games that he's played with Rashee Rice, he's averaging 16.8 points per game. That's 5 more than he was averaging across the rest of the season before Rashee Rice was back. He's at 29 targets, over a 30% target share. So it's really been impressive how good he's been after the catch. His yards after catch per reception is the highest it's been in his career since 2016. That's a long time ago. There have been a lot of players who've washed out of the NFL several times over in that spell, but Travis Kelce has come into this season, looked phenomenal, 631 yards, second most among tight ends, 4 touchdowns. Yes, maybe you'd like to see a little bit more there. But this week, going up against the Colts in a game which has huge ramifications for the playoff spots, and the Colts have allowed the 4th most fantasy points to the tight end position. So, yeah, I think Travis Kelce is set for a very good week.
That is the top 5 tight ends. We all knew you were starting those if you're rostering them anyway. Before we move into the interesting start sit points, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button. We do this every single week, and very soon it will be the off-season where this channel truly comes to life. In the B tier, we do have Dallas Goedert, Hunter Henry, and Jake Ferguson. Tom, I was a little bit surprised when I sat down to do my rankings how high I could get Hunter Henry. And then I saw you had him even higher. What is it about Hunter Henry's matchup this week that has you excited?
Well, he plays the Bengals. Like, if you play the Bengals, you get moved up, and we've talked about this week after week. The Bengals have allowed 12 tight end touchdowns this year. No other team has allowed more than 7. They've allowed, like, by far the most yards to the position. They've just absolutely been a nuclear matchup for players each and every single week. The Bengals just stink. At home, I think this is the kind of spot which Hunter Henry can really capitalize against the poor Bengals defense. Like, yes, he hasn't scored 10 PPR points since week 4, and he's averaging less than 7 points over his last 5 or 6 games. But against the Bengals, like, look, everybody scores against the Bengals at the tight end position.
I feel like I need to get a button of you just saying, he gets to play the Bengals. He gets to play the Bengals every single week. It would save me an awful lot of time. In the C tier, we do have Kadon, Mark Andrews, Kyle Pitts, and Theo Johnson. We talked about the changes in Atlanta in the wide receiver videos when we were discussing Darnell Mooney. Kyle Pitts, he's in that kind of tight end purgatory where he's not playing bad enough that you can cut him, you can drop him, but he's not playing well enough that he's winning you weeks. Do you feel any more confidence with Kirk Cousins under center as to what Kyle Pitts is going to do?
Not really, because it's kind of fair to point out that some of Kyle Pitts' best play over the last few years was early this season. But the Saints, they are a pass funnel. Like, they're really good against the run. They rank 7th best in EPA allowed. But when it comes to the pass, they rank 25th. I have a feeling, and I should have found these numbers before we got on here, but I have a feeling that Kyle Pitts has had some good games against the Saints. It might be the Bucs that I'm confusing that one with. But I just think with no Drake London, that Kyle Pitts has to see a little bit of a bump up. Like, surely he is going to take some of those slot snaps. If not, I don't know who is going to.
You would expect him to. The passes have certainly got to go somewhere. And let's be honest, Kirk Cousins isn't throwing the ball 30 yards downfield. So maybe Kyle Pitts can get some work on some of those crossing and drag routes across the middle. Theo Johnson is also in that tight end purgatory. It feels like he looks good on film. He's getting separation. He's put up some solid fancy numbers, but hasn't really truly established himself at the position. It does feel a little bit touchdown reliant. Do you think Jackson Dart is back? Could that be a good thing for Theo Johnson moving forward?
I don't know. I just feel like Theo Johnson doesn't have massive ceiling week to week. Like, you look across this year and he's been over 35 yards like twice. 2 games where he hit 66 yards against the Broncos and then where he went for 75 against the Bears. On the whole, it's been an awful lot of games where he has 3 catches for 34 yards, that kind of stat line. And then you're just kind of praying that he gets into the end zone. So Theo Johnson's somebody that each week I kind of like move him around back and forth on the rankings, try to decide how I feel about it. And I'm never really overly confident in what I'm going to get from him. This week, the Lions on the road, like, the Lions are a good team. Like, their pass defense has been a little bit beaten up, but they still rank 8th in EPA allowed. They rank 19th in fantasy points allowed to the tight end position. So, I don't know, man. Touchdown or bust.
It's always the way. It's always the way. If you are struggling over that last minute start sit decision, look no further. Jump in the comments below. Tom and I will have the answer you need. And we're also taking all your questions, whether that be trades or anything else. Dive in the comments. Let us know your thoughts and we will help you with some great advice. In the D tier, we've got Colston Loveland, Juwan Johnson, Dalton Schultz, and Harold Fannin Jr. Tom, in the wide receiver video, you discussed the Chicago Bears and their heavier use of 12 personnel over the last couple of weeks. That's resulted in Colston Loveland playing 75% of snaps last week. Didn't really get home, only 4 targets, 7 fantasy points. But could this be the start of Colston Loveland starting to emerge? Because on tape, he is eye-popping. He looks great. He is so much more athletic than the players try to cover him. And I think it's only a matter of time before he truly breaks out.
Yeah, it could be a frustrating one because Cole Kmet also played 75% of snaps last week, and they are utilizing Cole Kmet, and they seem to want Cole Kmet out there when they're going to run the ball as well. But I think this is a good enough matchup going up against the Steelers. They've allowed the 8th most tight end yards. They've allowed 6 touchdowns to the tight end position. Like, the Steelers haven't been particularly strong this year. They've allowed the 3rd most fantasy points to the position overall. So I'm willing to say, with the Bears being at home and the way they've used Colson Loveland over the last couple of weeks, that if you're in need of a fringe starter, then I'm okay with it. Like, I'm starting Colson Loveland in my home league this week.
One other player that you're a huge fan of, Juwan Johnson, he has now put up over 10 fantasy points in the last 4 games in a row. He's had back-to-back touchdowns with Tyler Shuck. He's the Titans 7 overall on the season, and yet we've got him all the way down in our D tier, Tom. What is causing that?
Well, I think that it's just the Tyler Shuck factor still. And when you look at the Saints offense, it's quite hard to trust them still. Now, we talked about Brandon Cooks being released from the Saints. Now, there's even fewer bodies out there. I don't think Devon Vile is suddenly going to turn into a target hog or anything like that. But it's kind of like this game doesn't feel incredible for fantasy purposes at the same time. So, yeah, I think Juwan Johnson can get out there and score a touchdown. It looks like Tyler Shuck trusts him in the red zone, and Tyler Shuck's confident throwing to him. But also, it's just like it's volatile enough where I can't place huge amounts of faith in it just yet.
Yeah, another player who's been volatile this year. We've had highs of 18.4. We've had lows of 4.5. Harold Fanning Jr. in Cleveland. He has established himself over David Njoku, but he's still not getting that consistent volume. And as we said, the quarterback is an issue. Do you have any hope that he could be a potential streamable option this week?
No, I mean, on the whole, I've possibly been a little bit lower on this situation than yourself. Like, I've found like the back and forth when Njoku's there, try to decide how to deal with it a little bit more difficult. And yes, he had a 19% target share last week compared to David Njoku's 7, but they also brought him off the field more often last week than they had been doing in previous weeks. And I saw Ryan Heath from Fantasy Points pointed this out on Twitter that he thought that might be linked to the fact that Isaiah Bond and Cedric Tillman were both out there, so they were leaning more into wide receiver heavy formations. Does that continue with Shedeur Sanders? I don't know. Like, I'm not entirely sure how this one's going to play. I would imagine you want some big bodies out there to help deal with around the offensive line and try and chip away at guys like Max Crosby. But the Raiders haven't given up a lot to the tight end position. They've given up the 5th fewest fantasy points to the position. They do rank 22nd against pass, but I'm not sure how you could have any faith in starting him in this spot.
Yeah, another player that is difficult to have faith in, but he has produced some decent weeks is AJ Barner. It feels like when he's good, he's great. And when he's bad, he's absolutely horrendous. Last week, he saw 10 targets, 2 carries, and got home with 17.1 fantasy points. So, Tom, everyone wants to know, is this a good AJ Barner week or is this a bad AJ Barner week?
Honestly, like, some of those stats kind of blew me away because it feels like quite often, like, when you're watching the games, but he's not involved till like he'll pop up and then disappear for ages again. So to see him have a 22% target share, which was, a season high for him, he's only been over 20% once this year. Otherwise, like, hovering around 11% for the vast majority. It's not a play I feel any conviction on playing. Like, the Titans, they rank 26th against the pass. So, like, you can pass on the Titans. The teams don't end up needing to because they tend to be in control heavily against the Titans. And more often than not end up just like grinding the clock away and running. So here in a situation where Seattle are favored by 13 points, I'm not sure the volume's going to be there. So then again, you're just hoping on a touchdown. But like, I mean, those stats from last week are great. Maybe you can capitalize on it.
Rounding out the rest of the tier, we do have Noah Fant, Mason Taylor, TJ Hawkinson, David Njoku, Luke Musgrave, and Dawson Knox. Remember, if you've got any start sit questions, you want to know who to put in that flex spot, get them in the comments below. While you're down there, hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe, and of course, check out these other rankings videos that we have put for the other positions this week.